We, the monks and winemakers dwelling in the mountains, share in common the gift of listening. Here in the countryside, a mysterious voice enchants our hearts with its serene melody and secret charm, calling us to be generous, authentic, kind, and ever young in our souls. The day when we finally assemble, that is, blend our wines, is the culmination of all our winemaking work. Here on the table, our finest vats of wine, each one having been aged separately to respect its own identity. These already accomplished wines will each sing its voice to the eyes, to the nose, and taste buds of wine connoisseurs. Perfection, this is the goal of the gathering. Like a choir master who conducts beautiful voices towards a full and dazzling unity. If you want music in the glass, the musical score must be engraved in the grape. The grape variety and the soil played together as instruments, both having an influence on the final music. Like musical instruments, each grape variety has its own particular tone, color, timbre, and its own specific register, lower, middle, or upper. It is up to the winemaker to know how to play them in order to obtain the most beautiful sound possible. One does not get the same sound from a Chardonnay or a Clairette, from a Syrah or a Grenache. Even more subtle still, the age of the vines, the nature of the soil and subsoil, the exposure to the north, south, etc., the altitude, the cultivation method, the yields, the climate, and its annual variations have a considerable influence on the nature and quality of the sound produced by the same grape variety. The southern Rhone Valley has a wide selection of grape varieties. Its wines are developed by assembling them, that is, by blending them. They are first made into wine separately. The same grape variety can itself be made into wine in different ways, according to the plots of land from which it comes from. With the different juices thus obtained, the winemaker has a rich range of sounds to compose his work. The art of blending consists in making a wine that is aesthetically more beautiful than the simple addition of the qualities of the juices that compose it. It thus illustrates Aristotle's famous formula, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. As with any orchestral work, the winemaker seeks harmony, that is to say, the right balance of smells, flavors, and different components that are mutually beneficial. This harmony is not only a physical sensation, but also an impression of the spirit that enlivens one's heart, as a work of music performed by a great symphony orchestra. Mozart said, "I put together the notes that love each other." The assembler winemaker does not do anything else. He is a composer, and his approach is creative. We start our assembling with the white wines. First, we uncork the best vintages to serve as a qualitative reference. The goal is now set. It is forbidden to aim lower. As the liturgy sings, lift up your hearts, sursum corda. In deep silence, with all senses wide open to evaluate the notes and the musical score of these juices, each vat is tasted. A cappella, alone for the wines aged in concrete vats, or with wood accompaniment for those aged in barrels, solo for the single grape varieties, or a chorus of grape varieties aged together in the same vat. The power of the juices from the warmer terrains surrounding the monastery, and the lightness of those from higher areas farther away. This diversity is breathtaking and delights our hearts. Often the conclusion is obvious and the assembling method unanimous. It is then done immediately, in order to undergo the tasting test. If it does not arouse enthusiasm, we look together for the combination that will allow us to obtain the desired harmony without betraying the melody that each wine must play. Like a musical concert, the vintage will always be a new performance of this unique and exceptional melody. The tasting session continues in the same way with the rosés and the red wines, sometimes generating small but true duels between the winemaker monks and the experts. Educated by the Word of God, by silence and Gregorian chant, the monks carry within them a universe of beauty and goodness that they do not want to betray in their works, which must reflect uncreated goodness. The equilibriums that generate harmony are not really capable of being measured. One must not, of course, neglect the technical analysis that allows us to evaluate the quality or the flaws of the different components, aromatic and taste notes, tannin intensity, acidity, sweetness, but complex and essential substances present in large numbers, but with infinitely tiny doses, remain out of reach when analyzed. They participate in the magic of wine. The art of assembling a wine does not consist in implementing a ready-made recipe reproduced every year, but in rendering still more perfect what nature and the work of man have produced at a given time. If the intimacy of wine escapes the cold analysis of the scientist, it can be brought to light through the experience of tasting. The assembler has a solid enological knowledge, but he is also an experienced taster. He knows how to describe the objective qualities of the wine, but also how to detect the inexplicable, elusive, and untranslatable aspects of the wine, while at the same time trying to predict its evolution over time. He lets his imagination, sensitivity, and intuition express themselves. He is more of a musician-poet than a scientist. The composer has an inner ear to hear the music being born in him. In the same way, the assembler has an internal sense to discern inside himself the presence of the future wine and to establish the right tunes, the correct amount of acidity of a white wine that enhances the freshness of the aromas and makes them perfectly audible, the controlled tannic quality of a red wine that gives fullness and volume, like the brass and percussion instruments of a symphony orchestra, the subtlety of the aromas that fuse together to create a harmonious melody, the sweet bitterness that balances the sugar in sweet wines by giving them rhythm and tension. But it sometimes happens that a sample tasted alone overwhelms the tasters, leaves them speechless, and creates a violent emotion. This juice must not be assembled. It must not be blended, as if nature had concentrated all its genius in it. A miracle occurs, like the crystalline voice of the soprano in Allegri's Miserere, a shattering vibration giving birth to unspeakable joy and hope, a glimpse of heaven. This marvel will be bottled without being assembled to touch the hearts of connoisseurs who will know how to recognize its excellence. Such a prodigy is not renewable. It contains a great deal of mystery, but it is not the fruit of chance. Land plots marked by a strong identity are capable of producing such marvels. The landscapes surrounding the monastery are not lacking in them. The monks have become aware of this. It is in this spirit that they develop their vineyard, so that might spring forth, when the vintage lends itself to it, a pure enological song, like the Gregorian chant, which rises from their hearts day and night. These are the abbaye battles, pure monastic song, played a cappella, without any wood, when the grapes lead towards pure jubilation.